This week on Art of the Air features artist Janet Sienicki, who combines found objects to create her 3D substrates. Next we feature mystery novelist focused on the American Southwest, Mark Edward Langley, who incorporates Native American themes into his writing. Our spotlight is on Dune Summer Theater's next production, Tick, Tick, Boom, opening June 29th.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart.
Welcome. You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, WVLP 103.1 FM, and WDSO 88.3 FM. Our weekly program covering the arts and arts events throughout Northwest Indiana and beyond. I'm Larry Breckner of New Perspectives Photography, right alongside here with Esther Golden of The Nest in Michigan City.
Aloha, everyone.
We're your hosts for Art on the Air. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant, South Shore Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Art on the Air is heard every Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, also streaming live at lakeshorepublicmedia.org, and is available on Lakeshore Public Media's website as a podcast. Also heard on Friday at 11 a.m. and Monday at 5 p.m. on WVLP 103.1 FM, streaming live at wvlp.org, and Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on WDSO 88.3 FM. Our Spotlight interviews are also heard Wednesdays on Lakeshore Public Media. Information about Art on the Air is available at our website, breck.com/AOTA. That includes a complete show archive, spotlight interviews, plus our show is available on multiple podcast platforms, including NPR One. Please like us on Facebook, Art on the Air, WVLP, for information about upcoming shows and interviews. And we'd like to welcome back Dune Summer Theater, talking about a little bit of their next production, which is kind of a unique Jonathan Larson production. They'll be doing that in June 29th through July 16th. We have the musical director, Andrew Flash. We also have Steve Scott returning, Elise Kermani, managing director. And then we have Danielle Karras, who's also going to be talking about some of the things. Welcome to Art on the Air Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you,
Aloha,
Larry.
welcome.
Hey, Esther.
Well, since Andrew's new to us here, let's ask you a little bit about Tick, Tick, Boom. You're the music director on that. Give us a little background of the show and your involvement with it, and a little bit about you.
Yeah, all those power vocals.
Sure, yeah. Well, as you mentioned, this is a great musical written by Jonathan Larson, who was the composer of Rent, which unfortunately he didn't live to see how successful that would become. But before that was very successful, he was an aspiring 30-year-old who didn't feel like he had amounted to much. And so this musical sort of wrestling with the struggles of trying to be an up-and-coming musical theater composer, and when your friends sort of bail out and go and take a job that makes more money than you, and maybe your love interest wants to settle down, but you're trying to focus on music and balance all these different priorities. So for me, as someone who wants to ultimately be a composer of musical theater and someone who music directs and whatnot, it's I'm closer to 30 than 20 now, so it's very personal to me. I think it's going to be a great project to work on. We've got a terrific cast, small cast of 3 folks, and all terrific singers, vocalists, actors, and really looking forward to it.
Can you mention their names?
Sure. So Max Detogny is returning. He's a Dunes veteran. And then I don't recall their last names offhand, but we have Kyle and Lily.
Lily Galuzzo and Kyle Roberson, who are both in the first Dune show, Boing Boing, and are staying on for the second one, Tick, Tick, Boom.
We're on our last show with you guys, talking about teaching musical creative drama classes.
Sure. Well, we'll come back to Tick, Tick, Boom in a little bit, but Danielle, tell us a little bit about what your involvement is going to be this summer, teaching and acting.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll be doing at the Dunes this summer is teaching one of the Dunes Arts Foundation classes, the musical theater class, which I'm really excited for. It's ages 8 through 12 are all welcome in this class, and we'll be singing songs from Matilda, Oliver, 13, and many more musicals. And we'll go over vocal technique on a variety of different styles, because musical theater is all these styles put in a blender and mixed up into into a delicious smoothie. I don't know. So we'll cover vocal technique, but we'll also cover song interpretation, acting the song, using the music and the lyrics to tell a story. And then we're going to build towards doing at least one, hopefully more than one, group ensemble number with all the kids working together and collaborating to do a group musical number. So I think it'll be a really fun class. I'm really excited. I think this age group is the perfect age group to work on musical theater with.
It does. It sounds like a delicious smoothie that you're creating.
And you're performing this summer, so tell us a little bit about that also.
Yeah, I'm going to be playing Nina in Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, directed by Steve himself on this call with us. And I'm really excited for that play. Steve can give you even more of a lowdown about it than I can, but it's a really, really funny play. Coincidentally, Christopher Durang, the playwright, also describes it as he put Chekhov characters into a blender and then created comedy. So I was sort of plagiarizing Christopher Durang.
It's okay. He doesn't mind, I'm sure.
Or if not, he'll send you an invoice.
That description of the play is perfect. I mean, basically, it's about two adult children of Chekhov scholars, hence their names, visited by their sister, Masha, who was a Hollywood star and has come back to sell the family home. And then hilarity ensues for a lot of different reasons. It's one of the funniest plays I've ever read. I directed a production of it a few years ago at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. It's a huge success there, and I watched it nearly every night because I thought it was so funny, which I rarely do.
Yeah,
So
I know, unless you are technically involved with the show, it's hard to sit and watch one of your pieces up on stage and everything like that. Fortunately, most of the stuff I did, I also slapped on a headset and was making sure everything was running okay. So
I usually just close my eyes and listen to it so I can't see what's going on. But this time I watched it. So.
Andrew, back to you. Tell us just quickly about your background in music and a little bit what your rehearsal schedule is going to look like for Tick, Tick, Boom.
Sure. So I first got into theater after being a choir kid. I played Rolf in The Sound of Music, and I swore I would never act again, but loved the music side of it. I started composing some music for plays at Chicago Street Theater in Valparaiso. Moved on to rehearsal pianist, eventually playing in pits, and then music directing. Been doing that for many years now, and this is my fourth season, I believe, with the Dunes. So they must like something about me. They keep inviting me back, but I don't know. We start on June 5th for rehearsals, and we'll have 3 weeks plus, our usual tech week of things, and then we open at the end of June.
Well, tell us a little bit, and maybe I'll let you take this part of it. Tell us when Tick, Tick, Boom is going to be seen and how to get tickets and where you guys are located.
Yeah, we open on Friday, June 30th and run until July 16th. So it's Friday and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central and Sundays at 2 p.m. You can get tickets online or come to the door. The website is dunesarts.org.
Well, where you're located? Well, you're located right there.
Yeah, right off 12. We have big signs now, so we're on Shady Oak Drive, 288 Shady Oak Drive.
Okay, and that's just stuff at 12 there. Well, we appreciate you coming on Art on the Air Spotlight. We should have made this a feature and talked a lot more, but Andrew, Danielle, Elise, and Scott, thank you so much for coming on Art on the Air, sharing about Tick, Tick, Boom, opening June 29th and running through July 16th. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it was exciting to hear from you.
You too, Esther.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Art on the Air Spotlight and the complete one-hour program on Lakeshore Public Media is brought to you by McCauley Real Estate in Valparaiso, Olga Patrician, Senior Broker. You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, on WVLP, 103.1 FM, and WDSO, 88.3 FM.
We would like to welcome Janet Sienicki to Art on the Air. Janet is a tax professional and a mixed media artist whose pieces incorporate archival treasures, heirlooms, and pieces of nature. She finds excitement in the interplay of shape, pattern, and color. Thank you for joining us on Art on the Air. Aloha and welcome. Hi, Janet.
Hello. It is my pleasure to be here.
Well, we're so glad to have you on, and I've known you for quite a few years in various arts situations. But it's glad to we hooked up at the Art Summit there at the Lake County Library, and it was good to do that. And I thought, oh, it's time to get you on the show. So, well, why do we always start off our interviews? We want to kind of kick off information about you. You're kind of like your story, how you got from where you were to where you are now. So, tell us about yourself.
Certainly. As you said, I am a tax professional. Specifically, I'm an enrolled agent. So I do battle with the IRS on the behalf of taxpayers protecting their rights. So this is kind of a big leap, but a very wonderful leap for me. In addition to working pretty much round the clock, taking care of people and their taxes, I'm also a full-time caregiver for my disabled daughter. So the stresses are always quite high, but I was very, very blessed to be able to go visit a friend in Tucson, Arizona. She would fly me out to help her with her taxes, but we really spent most of the time just enjoying Tucson. And she was a great inspiration to me. You would walk into her home. And so just so I can kind of walk you through, and the whole house was an art gallery of everything she had created. She had experienced the worst of humanity in her life in World War II. And she had a wonderful family, and through it all created this beautiful art. And I remember also walking through her home into where she created, which I think is such a big, wonderful thing. She had a sunroom that faced the mountains. And she taught me the saying, when the mountains turn pink, it is time to drink. And so we would share a glass of wine when the mountains would turn pink. And the first night I was there, of course, I was exhausted. It was late and it felt very late to me. And I think I was kind of dozing as she was talking to me. And she said, Janet, you have to wait for the show. And I thought, okay, we're in the desert. It's very dark. And suddenly it appeared above our head. And if you've ever been out west or anywhere where you have, no light pollution, the blanket of stars that created a show. And I couldn't take my eyes off of that. So it was this whole experience. She painted in her sunroom where the glass doors open to the mountains. And she knew that I was in a very stressful situation. And she said, Janet, you should really think about art, doing some type of art, even if it's grabbing a tube of red paint and slathering it on a canvas, just to get all of the stresses and everything out. She goes, I think you'll really enjoy it. And of course, I thought, oh, yeah, I can't create anything, except a good tax return for people. And so I thought about it, but it really wasn't until probably 2017. And I was living in a condo, and I had a very small space. And in that small space, I started doing journal pages. And I started creating, things. I would find things and put them in the journal pages and add paint, add color, very organic. And I still have boxes of those early remnants of this creation. But it was a small little desk. And I would then, of course, make a mess. Then you stop in the middle of a project, got to kind of put it away. And then as my daughter became more ill, we had to move a few times, and my artwork, everything got locked away in a storage room, and I never saw it. And in 2021, we found a home in Valparaiso that was had a carriage house, an old carriage house. And this carriage house, our dream was always to kind of retire in Michigan and have, nautical themed everything, like New Buffalo is all nautical. But we know that probably isn't in our future, but we have this beautiful carriage house that we have renamed the boathouse. We do not own a boat in any way. The upstairs of the boathouse is a huge loft. And I walked up to this loft with very creaky floors, all kinds of creepy crawly things up there. And I claimed it for my own. as where I could spread everything out and actually, create
a mess.
I create huge messes, huge. And sometimes friends will join me and they will bring some wine and we will create messes. I have a
Bigger
friend,
messes.
Bigger messes. I have a friend from Scotland. Her name is Anne, and she always says, Janet, this is your artist garret. I said, okay, it's my artist garret. And so I have an artist garret. But I was very blessed to have this opportunity to spread things out and actually start to create things. And my son saw my journal pages, Stephen, and he said, Mom, there's this thing called the Sketchbook Project, and it's out of the Brooklyn Art Library. And have you thought about trying that? And so I sent away and got their sketchbook, and it's kind of small and blank and very intimidating. And so I've gotten 2 of those and they're still blank and intimidating. But they sent me challenges. And the challenges were, I think one was you had a keyword. And so I took 2 of those on, 5x5s. And the one challenge was graveyard. And the other challenge was keeper. And so I created these 2 children on this tiny little, canvas, and they were very spooky kind of looking. And I added different twigs and growths and branches. And so I made it kind of just a creepy, it was the buzzword, that's what I captured. And then the keeper, I did one of my seashells with the sand and stuck a little key inside with all the other treasures. And these are, again, 5x5. And they ended up being published in one of their books alphabetically. And they had some other challenges that I joined. And it built my confidence, that I could actually create something that someone else might enjoy. Some of those artworks were swapped with other people. So that was kind of the way that I got started with working on just creating and having the space. But the other element I needed was time. And so when you're working full-time and a caregiver, having that breakaway time is so important. And so I decided I needed to give God that time. The Sunday is supposed to be a day of rest, except tax season, I have a hard time doing that. But on Sundays, I will, and I have to thank, my husband made this loft livable. He and my daughter helped me with getting some items so that I have, something to set the items on so that I could actually, create. But so that's why I call it Sunday art, because literally on Sundays, that's the only day I allow myself to go up to that loft and actually create and work on different projects.
And lose track of time.
And I do, until they call me in for lunch, Mom, it's time for you to come home. Like my dad used to whistle to get us all back in the house. And so, but I appreciate that space, and that makes a big difference and allowed me that ability to create different things.
You say, Sunday is a day of rest, and how you choose to spend that day of rest. I know we had a pastor who took her day of rest, because she works on Sunday, on Friday. So however you choose to take that day of rest is important for everything. Janet, you didn't talk anything about, obviously you started art kind of late as far as that, but did you have any interest in art growing up? And tell us a little bit about where you grew up and kind of that part of your life.
Sure. And I grew up in Cherville, and I always loved art, but I would say probably more of the performing art. I was involved in some theater and lots of dance. And then as I became an adult, of course, those things get pushed to the side. My children were involved in theater, and I was allowed as an adult to help with some choreography, some at the Opera House and other places. And so that part of art I always was involved with, but I had a great appreciation for the beautiful things and the things that were a little bit different. And I would say when my daughter went to college, and she went to Roosevelt University, and so she spent a great deal of time at the Art Institute and walking through, and I had been to the Art Institute, but then going there with her and looking at it through her eyes, where she would take me here, it was very inspiring, to see. Obviously Chagall is there, and I trounced around Chicago to find some of his installations. And so I don't think I had the same appreciation. She loves pre-Raphaelite art, and so now she has kind of educated me, and so I'm always looking for that. And so my children educated me on a lot of different things. So.
Well, I noticed a lot of your art has found objects in it, and you talked a little bit about the key, but, looking at it on the screen here and some of the things that you have, you like gears and different types of things. So do you preconceive what you want, or is it just something that just kind of organically happens? You have these things and you just sort of on your Sundays assemble this?
The answer to both of your questions is yes. So I do sometimes have a preconceived idea. So probably when I started doing steampunk, and I thought that was just a hoot to gather all these crazy things and then to get them on a substrate, and create weird, bizarre things. That was just a crazy fun thing for me to do. But the first big steampunk was a guitar. And many people have questioned why a guitar, because that's a very unique, background for steampunk. Although, they make them, but they make them actually play, the real playable guitars are steampunk for on stage. This was my brother. He loves guitar. He collects guitars. And so I started making that for him for his birthday. And that would be about a year ago. And it's just the face of a guitar. And I steampunked that. And it took me 8 months to actually do that guitar. And I think it was because preconceived, I needed to have it perfect. So there are things, if you zoom into that guitar and really look at the pieces, you'll find there are guitar picks in the steampunk. There are just special little memorabilias that are in there that I did, for him. But I always try to include something memorable. The guitar that I did that was floral, but not steampunk, but in that same kind of motif where I made everything black and then added the color. There are heirlooms. My mother-in-law, when she passed away, gave us a huge, we received a huge bag of her jewelry, some of which will never be worn. But I've taken some of her brooches and her pins, and in some of the seashells are some of her pearls, and I've kind of worked those in. So some of these are really very special for many reasons.
Is that one staying with you, or is that going to go to a family member?
I just tried to create that one to have it ready actually for the Creative Art Summit, because I was going to recreate the steampunk. And I thought, okay, Steampunk Janet, it's time to do something a little different. And so that's when I added this one with the floral. Now, I had an artist come up to me at the Creative Art Summit, and he's a brilliant painter. And he came up and he goes, "Are those flowers metal or pressed from foil?" And I smiled because I thought, wow, no, a lot of these are actually pieces of jewelry. Some of these are paper. Some of these are silk. So the materials are very, very different. And the textures that I added to the guitar are actually just textures made, with modeling paste and things to make it look like something metal that has been created on or was created on the guitar. So yeah, that's kind of how I go about that.
So do you just work on those 3D objects, or do you also do something like in painting and things like that?
I have done some painting. I haven't really shown that to anyone yet. I'm working on a tree of life picture right now that I'm painting. That's one of 3 projects I'm working on, and I'm trying to incorporate a lot of color because that's where I think I need to kind of expand. When you look at my things, you'll see that I don't put a lot of color. I try to interject some splatters of color into the different things. But the tree of life that I'm painting, I'm adding a lot of colors and trying to. So that's like kind of going a different direction. Another project I'm working on is I found an antique photo of a girl, Victorian age, with a hat. She's been with me since 2017, trying to find a home. And I'll make a substrate, and I could work months on one substrate because I just enjoy the process. And then I take this girl and I said, no, you don't belong there. And so she's been off, and I think I finally am creating the correct background for her. So, and that involves, of course, a lot of painting and blending. And I use a lot of different forms of paints and stains and dyes and inks. And I walk in with my hands, 20 million colors. And, but that's a process. I am trying to expand and do more painting and more color.
Working on canvas or wood? What's your bottom layer?
Well, obviously when I did the guitars, that was wood. So that was very different. And then when I work with these others, I'm using canvas, either stretch canvas or the canvas boards. Some are a little more solid for holding some of the pieces that I'm attaching. And so that's always a surprise to me. I'm building and assembling, and then I pick it up. It's like, oh, that is really not happy on that canvas. So I trial by error, a lot. But I do want to expand and do more, on the wood, because I've actually gotten a request to steampunk a real guitar that people would play. And I'm like, oh, that freaks me out. I have to be quite honest with you, because you have to really mark, where I'm allowed. And so I'll have to practice on a few, I think, before I touch someone's actual guitar. So
now, you were at the summit. Tell us a little bit about that. And then also, are you exhibiting, and where have you exhibited, and maybe plans for future exhibits?
Sure. I'm not exhibiting anywhere currently. The Creative Arts Summit was kind of exciting. I did it last year, the initial year. And then this year they asked for people to submit art pieces that might be incorporated into their poster. And I was very shocked when I call her the lady that I made with the florals, all around her, and the substrate was beautiful. And I submitted that, and I was shocked because it wasn't part of the poster. It actually became the poster. And so that was kind of exciting, especially then you go to the Creative Arts Summit and you see all these wonderfully talented people. So I felt really excited that was there. I'm not exhibiting anywhere. I looked for different art shows. Last year I did the gala for the Caring Place. I submitted 3 pieces to that, and was just excited that they let me, be included with all the real artists, because I feel like I'm still just, playing and having just a wonderful time doing it. So, although
so do the real artists. They play and have a good time too. So,
well, and that's wonderful, because it's it brings me great joy and satisfaction, I have to say. So, and I do look at kind of, when I talk about the shapes, the patterns, and I really feel like that same choreography that I have done in the past for, dance, I kind of feel like this sometimes is like that choreography, that same movement and the same thing, blending these different things. And I certainly get the same enjoyment, and satisfaction that I did, although probably not the same workout. Although some days, yes. My loft has no heat and has no air conditioning. And let me just say, when I'm up there, I have sweat pouring off, and it's worth every moment of sweat. But basically, to see, the pieces of art, some have been sold, some have been given away. I do have a Facebook page, and it's Sunday Art, because that's what it is, by Janet Sienicki. And so that you can look at anything that I have created there, and I'll continue to add to that, hopefully over the summer. Hopefully I'll not take 8 months to create, one thing. I have several things going, and I can't wait to add to that. And then I'll watch for other venues and opportunities where I might be able to, show my art. And I love going and looking what other people have created also.
Are you looking to develop the guitars are sort of larger, but maybe larger pieces of what you do? I mean, I'm looking at your Facebook page right now, but is that something down the road that you might create a much larger piece for your work?
Yes, and I tried to go a little bit larger for the Creative Arts Summit, and so the guitar, that's a bigger piece. That next step, I think I'm looking at doing some type of the floral creation on an antique window. I walk into an antique store and I kind of go a little bit crazy, and I have an antique store who saves broken jewelry and things for me to come and, rescue. So, but I am looking at doing some bigger pieces.
Very good. Oh, one place you might look into is in Hammond. It's Serendipity with our friend Karen Maravilla. She has lots of things up there that might be very interesting. So
wonderful. I'm always looking for a new place to go and go crazy a little bit. So.
Well, we have less than a minute left, so tell us again about your website and plans. I know you don't have anything for exhibits yet, but just tell us a little bit about that in the final minute that we have, Janet.
Okay, certainly. And again, it's a Facebook page, Sunday Art by Janet Sienicki, and I am happy to answer any questions if you message me through that Facebook page and provide you with information. I haven't really had anybody request anything specifically be made, so I'll just keep adding things, and I just hope people enjoy them. I'm not here to really be out there selling. I have a business, but if people are interested, I would just love to share what I'm creating.
Well, and if anyone wants to do a commission, they can message you, and I'm sure they might enjoy some of those pieces. They're just very creative. I especially like this piece that's a whole bunch of shells and things, and it's like the sand on one side and the water on the other side. Janet Sienicki, thank you so much for coming on Art in the Air and sharing your art journey.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, on WVLP, 103.1 FM, and WDSO, 88.3 FM.
We would like to welcome Mark Edward Langley to Art on the Air. Mark is an award-winning author of the Arthur Nakai Mystery Series. His debut Nakai novel, Path of the Dead, was followed by Death Waits in the Dark, the third, When Silence Screams. In the work is the fourth book, The Source. He has 6 more in the works for the Arthur Nakai series. Mark is also working on the first novel in his Sky Roan Horse series. Thank you for joining us on Art on the Air. Aloha and welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you. I enjoy being here.
We're happy to have you. Well, Mark, just like we like to have with all of our guests, we kind of want to know your origin story, both as an author, but even your own personal journey. And I always like to say how you got from where you were to where you are now. So please tell us about yourself.
Well, like they all say, it's people believe things are an overnight success, but they're not. It's been an average almost 30 years in a career myself. And then when I retired at the end of 2016, I've been writing, the Path of the Dead for like the first 20 years. And then I finally settled down and worked on that solidly through rewrites and so forth, and got it where I wanted it, submitted it to 17 different agents online there, and with query letters and sample chapters. And I had one person call me and talk with him for about a half hour or more, signed on. And then lucky enough, things tend to domino when things start to happen. So I ended up getting a 2-book deal out of that, and had to write the next book within about a year.
So how did you choose your location? Was it a trip out west maybe that inspired the series?
My God, yeah. Back when I was 12, I'm 60, I'll be 63 this year. But when I was 12, my parents took me on a vacation out there, and I just fell in love with it then. Everything about it, the people, the land, of course, mountains, desert, the whole nine yards.
The
And then
colors, the colors are fantastic.
oh God, yeah, the evening sunsets are amazing, you know. But I went back out there in my late 20s, and that's when it really hit me because I got coming down through Utah into the Four Corners area, and something just hit me and clicked, and I just felt like I was home. So I started doing things on a tape recorder, which is a Panasonic tape recorder, and I recorded everything I saw taking the route in that first book from New Mexico to Montana, and then bringing it back home, transcribing it down, beginning to develop characters and backstories and so forth, and started writing the book.
Very good. Hey, now I kind of want to go back to your origin story. So tell us, like, where you were born, where you grew up, and some of your early things before you got into authoring.
Oh boy! Well, I was born in Richmond, Virginia, a long time ago, back in 1960, and then my parents moved around, and so forth, job transfers and that kind of thing, and then ended up here, living in Illinois. From about 69 to 79, graduated high school. My dad got transferred the day after high school, went down to Houston, and then spent some time down there, moved back up here, and then started, working in jobs. The first job I had, I think, was a counterman at a place called Giant Auto Parts. That company closed down a long time ago, but got into the automotive industry and pretty much stayed there for years until I ended up retiring as a executive for a company in their division head. So I got him into automotive aftermarket stuff for trucks that they wanted to get into, and that was good. And then retired. And along 20 years before that, we're also writing the first book, on and off, get married, have kids, and the whole nine yards. Things get reappropriated for different things, and there's more pressing things besides doing that. But once I retired, I got to focus on it, and I got it into an agent, and who took me on. And within 2 weeks, I had a 2-book deal for the first 2 books.
So, Mark, when you first, like over 20 years ago, when that first novel began, did you see it being a 9-series? Did you also see the beginning and the end? Like, did you have that big picture and went, oh, this is like, I'm going to take this for 9 books?
That was my original thought, was I do things differently. A lot of people say that because a title will hit me, and I'll jot it down, of course, and put it in my book, my phone, or whatever, and then I'll start to look at each of them and start having an idea about the background of that story, and I'll write that down. So I have the title, I have a background, all the characters, the central characters are all set, and then just develop individual characters for those new books. But yeah, I had 9 set up to go when the first one was published.
You always knew that beginning and end. Where you're ending up, kind of.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to end, but I mean, if something happens and it does, and I don't make the 9, who knows? But then it'll probably just be the way it goes, But I'm just hoping to make a career out of it and enjoy it, and have a life with that, and do what I've always dreamed of doing, dating back to the times when my influences were Robert B. Parker, Mickey Spillane, and John D. McDonald, Tony Hillerman. Of course, Hemingway. I love Hemingway. But I read all those authors, and at some point in my life, I thought, I think I can do this, and you get to that point where maybe you can, maybe you can't, but you push through it. And it took me a long time. It took 20 years to write that first book, going different variations of it, changing the first chapter several times, the name of the lead character several times, until I got to Arthur Nakai. But when it all was said and done, and 20 years later or so, you actually find the voice you have to write that, and you go through that one more time and get it set up to submit, and you just hope for the best, and luckily I got that.
How did you come upon Arthur Nakai?
Actually, there was a guy that I worked with at the business here in Hammond whose name was Arthur. And then my main Native American flute music that I have is from our Carlos Nakai. So I
Yes.
put Arthur Nakai together, and there you go.
Excellent.
Is he modeled after any other influences, Arthur? Like, you lifted out a whole bunch of different literary works, and not that you stole anything, but what components brought together to become Arthur?
Well, I remember Robert Parker doing a dissertation, talking about doing his college dissertation on how he merged, Raymond Chandler and so forth, or whatever, to come up with Spencer. And I kind of think that when I look back on it, my main thing, I learned from each of those people. I told Ann Hillerman that I learned from her father, how to celebrate the background, the richness of the land, and the description of that process. I think from Parker, I learned how to write solid dialogue that just flows, and gets you involved in the characters. They feel like real people when I'm writing them, because they have a mind of their own sometimes. Mickey Spillane, goes without saying, being the hardboiled detective of Mike Hammer, I've kind of learned how to do action sequences and so forth. John D. McDonald storyline, definitely, because he has wonderful storylines in Travis McGee. And I was very surprised that another author said when he reviewed the books, it was like that, that my writing reminds him of John D. McDonald, and I was kind of floored with that, but I even told Ann Hillerman that. I said, sometimes when I'm stuck on something, I will ask her father for help, and she said, don't worry, I do it all the time.
So you gave him like quite a magnificent set of skills. Did you have military in your background? Is that why you wanted to add all those military skills?
No, unfortunately, I did not. I have been blind in my left eye since 16, so that was out of the question for that. But a lot of the guys that I went to high school with ended up joining. So I kind of write this for them, and I got to sit down with one who was a friend of mine back in my high school days and talk with him about what he went through over in Afghanistan and so forth. So I dedicated Path of the Dead to him, as known as Chap, because he was the Army chaplain at the time with that. And then we sat down one evening and just let him talk, and I got a lot of insight on that. Plus, I believe, that the military veterans don't get a lot of things going on out there that are positive. And other radio people that I've talked to online and, on radio that were veterans, one of them gave me some high praise I didn't expect by saying when he read the books, he felt like they were real to him because he had gone through similar situations, and he was dealing with things. He was older than me, but he goes back a long way. But the characters that I have in there of Arthur's group from his Marine days, he enjoyed reading that, and he could equate with them. He understood them.
Do you have a connection to the Native American people? That's so much a part of what you seem like you write. What is your connection, if any, or maybe that's just a learned connection?
I think it is from being out there since I was 12. I did get a chance to, and it just started online for one thing. A woman I was friends with on Facebook, I wanted to find out an answer to a question about a high school in Kirtland out there and where this one person would be. Would he be going to that school? So she and I struck up a conversation, and she said, well, when you come out, I want to take you around and introduce you to some people. So she got some people together, and I met with them for about a half hour or more, just getting to know each other because they wanted to find out why I was writing, what I was writing, what was my intentions of doing that. Not just to make money and so forth. And I wasn't going to, make them look bad and this and that. But one gentleman that I did talk to and sat down with for a while, to look at him, he was just, your average older middle-aged guy, with the baggy pants and shirt and so forth. But he actually is what they call the geologist and botanist of the year, Four Corners area, because he actually takes college students out of all the colleges in the field and teaches them about, botany and so forth and geology. Was got to talk with him, and he was a priceless person, Arnold. When I got to go out, and he said, "Well, where do you want to go?" I said, "I want to go to the places in the book so I can describe the history of them. I can describe some of the traditionalist opposite things about them." So I took him out there, and he spent a day with him going to different places, and I learned a lot geologically and Navajo history wise. Plus, I have several Native American people in the Navajo tribe that I do have as friends on Facebook, and I can ask them a myriad of questions and get the right answers without having to search and make things up or try to figure it out myself. I can go right to the source and say, well, if this happens, what is done either traditionally wise or whatever, ceremony wise with this? I don't want to reveal a lot of intricate things, but just enough to give the reader the situation of what's going on. And they help me out a lot with that.
You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media 89.1 FM, on WVLP 103.1 FM, and WDSO 88.3 FM. We're at a point that we'd love to hear a sample. I don't know which novel you're going to pull that from, but we want to hear a sample of your work and hear more about the world that you have created.
Well, I have about a page and a half here of When Silence Screams, which I devoted to when I found out in 2016, 5,712 girls and women went missing on the reservations in the U.S. and Canada. I started delving into that, and I wanted to write about that. And I did interview some people whose stories are in the book and under different characters, of course, But I'll read a little bit of that, if you don't mind.
Please.
The beginning of chapter 1 is what this is. April Minigoat's eyes flickered briefly, projecting snippets of images upon the canvas of her slowly awakening mind. As her consciousness sharpened, her eyes focused on the overwhelming darkness that surrounded her. The first sensation she became aware of was the icy chill of cold air that cloaked her naked body like a heavy blanket. The second was the rough and gritty surface of the wooden floor which she lay. It seemed to grip her adolescent shape like 1,000 frozen fingers of the dead. Through the foggy haze of her still emerging mind, she realized that her body was in a state of self-imposed weightlessness, a kind of transcendental void where all her senses could reset and begin to feel again. Her eyes fluttered once again as she became more aware of the damp, musty darkness that surrounded her and hung in the air like a cloying mist. Her first thought was to try to move, but the ropes that had been wrapped snugly around her arms kept them in place. She tried to move her legs, but once again, the firm grasp of ropes kept them still. She could feel the bottoms of her feet resting against each other and the roughness of her heels as they shifted slightly. As she lay there, her eyes staring into the shadow of captivity, her ears began to search for any suggestion of sound. Hearing nothing, her cloudy mind could discern. She felt her heart sink even lower as the feeling of hopelessness began to take hold. With all the will she could muster, she pushed that feeling down deep inside to a place where she would be able to deal with it later. She could only manage to move her heavy head slightly to the left and right and backward. Forward wasn't a direction available to her because something had been woven into her long dark hair that kept her head from moving in that natural direction. Her mind thought back to when this was the norm for some of her clients, their sick, perverted game that made them feel like men. But this she knew was something different, so very different. In her previous life, she had quickly graduated from the back alleys to clubs on the luxury hotel rooms of Vegas, but this was something terrifying. She wondered if anyone was looking for her. She wondered if her parents had gone to the police after she had never returned from their spot under the covered sidewalk of the Palace of Governors in Santa Fe during the Indian market. She took a deep breath and told her 19-year-old mind, of course they'd be looking for you. Why wouldn't they? Even after all these months had passed. The reality of it all, she conceded, was that there had probably been Amber Alerts and social media notifications and flyers posted everywhere her parents and friends could put them since the day she had disappeared. But had anyone actually paid attention to them? And more importantly, had anyone, whoever did, even seen her?
That's from One Silent Scream with our guest. And, Publishers Weekly said about this, detective fans will enjoy this thriller that powerfully depicts the crisis of abducted women, indigenous women. And that is a true story, crisis that's going on in those areas.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's been going on for a long, long time. And, I am hooked up with Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women USA, and I see flyers daily come over my phone of somebody who's gone missing. And luckily, some people get found in a couple of days, and then some never do. And some do get found, and they have been murdered either by someone they know or by whoever kidnapped them, It's a sad thing that this happens, but it's one of those areas that they figure people will not really miss anybody who goes missing from there, but families do. Families.
I know the whole red dress exhibition was so powerful.
Oh yeah, that's why I wanted to have it on the cover of the book, because I think, and people were saying, well, why is that there? Well, there's a reason for that being there. Yes, that's that. That means someone has been stolen from your family. It's a representation of the thousands that go
missing and murdered women.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, because of the overlapping jurisdictions they have in those areas with the tribal law, and they only have a certain amount of things. I mean, that came out evident in Longmire. The overlapping jurisdictions of domestic law enforcement, and how that many times they just fall right through the crack because nobody does that. I'm interested in your writing process a little bit, if you can know that. Obviously, you have an established central character, but do you outline that first? Do you sometimes just put like lead-in paragraphs, or what is your process?
I do outline. I outline every chapter. I will basically get a title and then develop a story behind that. I have a file drawer here full of a myriad of newspaper articles and stories and so forth that I've printed out over the time to draw from. If I find one that will fit what I'm writing about, then I'll use those. So I take, for lack of a better thing, Post-it notes, and I will put a chapter head on each Post-it note, and I will write on there what I want to happen and occur in that chapter. And like When Silence Screams was, I think, the most chapters that I've had, and I had my wall over here was filled with yellow Post-it notes. So, but I do outline. I try to outline every one. Now, the first book, Path of the Dead, about 8 chapters into that, I knew where I wanted to go, so I stopped momentarily there, and I wrote a bit of the last chapter, so I had a place to go to. I knew I had to get there, but I knew where I was going. Same thing for the second book. Third book, I didn't really realize what I was going to do with that until I got about halfway through it, and then I thought about it. I go, "Oh, that's a good idea." So I took that and I wrote a little bit in the last chapter of that, so I knew where to go and got there. But I always outline. I don't go by seat of my pants, because I believe you have to have the knowledge of where you want to go. Now, things may change along the pathway because your characters may do something different than you wanted them to do, or say something about different.
Right, or meet someone you didn't expect them to meet.
Exactly, and all of a sudden there may be a smaller character has a bigger part of it than you realize, and it just happens, But I like to know where I'm going, so I can pretty much map out where I want to go to get there.
Now, each of your novels are basically standalone. You could pick up novel 3, and even though I'm sure there's an evolution of your main character, Arthur, they'll all stand alone for the most part.
Oh, they will. They're all definitely individual stories, yeah. The only thing I tell people when they ask about them at shows and stuff is that there is a thread that runs through them regarding the main character of Arthur Nakai and his wife, Sharon. You meet them in the first book, and they're trying to come back from the stillbirth death of their first child. And it's weighed heavily on them for a couple of years. and they're still trying to feel each other out and get back to the way things were, which is very difficult at that point to recreate life before that happened. But they're trying, So in each book there is a thread that runs through of them getting further along, getting better, finding things out, and moving on. So that'll be a good thing throughout. And book 4 is that I'm writing right now, which I've changed the title because the title changed right and left. Right now it's currently called The Source with that, but there's a lot of things that are going to happen in that I think the readers will be pleased about.
Real quickly, how can people find you online and your books?
Well, I am at markedwardlangley.com online there. And with that, you can scroll down to media and social media and see then takes you right to the Facebook account and Twitter and Instagram and so forth. You can join members only because on my website, because that will get you into exclusive things that I put out and send to my subscribers on there. The snippets of the new books that I have coming out, so you'll get to read those as things go on. So there's a lot of things going on with that, But I think of Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, they're all on there. Just click on that, take you right to them. You can buy books, autographed copies on my website, or you can just buy a copy from Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble or wherever you go in to buy your books.
Well, we appreciate you coming on Art on the Air. That's Mark Edward Langley and his wonderful series of books. You can find them. He gave you all the information there. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mark, so much.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank our guest this week on Art on the Air, our weekly program covering the arts and arts events throughout Northwest Indiana and beyond. Art on the Air is heard Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, also streaming live at lakeshorepublicmedia.org, and is available on Lakeshore Public Media's website as a podcast. Art on the Air is also heard Friday at 11 a.m. and Monday at 5 p.m. on WVLP 103.1 FM, streaming live at wvlp.org, and Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on WDSO 88.3 FM. Our Spotlight interviews are heard every Wednesday on Lakeshore Public Media. Thanks to Tom Maloney, Vice President of Radio Operation for Lakeshore Public Media, and Greg Kovach, WVLP's Station Manager. Our theme music is by Billy Foster with a vocal by Renee Foster. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant, South Shore Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. We'd like to thank our current underwriters for Lakeshore Public Media, Macaulay Real Estate in Valparaiso, Olga Patrician, Senior Broker. And for WVLP, Walt Reidinger of Paragon Investments. So we may continue to bring you Art in the Air. We rely on you, our listeners and underwriters, for ongoing financial support. If you're looking to support Art in the Air, we have information on our website at breck.com/AOTA, where you can find out how to become a supporter or underwriter of our program in whatever amount you are able. And like I say every week, don't give till it hurts. Give till it feels good. You'll feel so good about supporting Art on the Air. If you're interested in being a guest or send us information about your arts-related event or exhibit, please email us at aota@breck.com. That's aota@breck.com, or contact us through our Facebook page. Your hosts were Larry Breckner and Esther Golden, and we invite you back next week for another episode of Art on the Air.
Aloha, everyone. Have a splendid week.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the Air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the Air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world